Welcome to Esoterica, the podcast, where we discuss the obscure, offbeat, and unusual. I'm Chris Schultz.
And I'm Eric Christian.
Today's episode is brought to us by the Leftorium. Everything for the left-handed man, woman, and child. The Leftorium now open at the Springfield Mall for all you left-handed shoppers out there. Come on in. So, Aaron.
Do you know if they have left-handed smoke shifters?
I believe they do. In the left-handed outdoor section.
Left-handed outdoor. Gotcha.
Yes.
Thank you.
And they also have Shoreline if you need it.
Awesome.
For you left or right-handed. Anyway, so what do we got going on today?
Well, today we have a special treat. We have a fantastic special treat for everyone who is listening. We are joined today by Jack Underkofler from Dead Poets Society, and we're going to be reviewing their 2015 release, Axiom. It's an 8-track album that came out in 2015. I just said that, but we're going to say it again.
Because it's important.
So without further ado, I am going to let Aaron take over the interview with Jack. So joining us today is Mr. Jack. Will you pronounce your last name so I don't say it wrong?
Underkofler.
Jack Underkofler from Dead Poets Society. How you doing today, Jack?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. We're doing great. So we asked you to come on. We're going to be talking about Axiom, but before we do that, we want to talk a little bit about Dead Poets Society because we have the pleasure to speak with you today. So I wrote down a couple questions that I was going to ask that I can't get to because they're on my phone for some reason. Here we go. So first question I want to ask, can you tell us kind of what led you guys to form Dead Poets Society? Like, how'd you guys become to be what you are?
Okay, well, it's kind of an interesting story. So there's two Jacks in the band. The guitarist is also named Jack. And he and our original bassist, Nick, had been trying to form a band since they got to Berkeley. And they grew up together, so they've been in bands together their whole lives. And they got to Berkeley and they started going through, singers and drummers. And they quickly became known as one of the worst bands at Berkeley. And there was actually a meme going around the school about how bad they were. And they had put out this cover of Pumped Up Kicks, and it's not on the internet anymore, but oh my gosh, is it a gem. And it was so bad, in fact, 6 months before I joined the band, I convinced one of my best friends who was drumming at the time to leave the band because I thought they were so bad. And I happened to be friends, just by random coincidence, I happened to be friends with Jack's roommate, a guy named Peter Chun. And I used to hang out with him. And one day Jack heard me singing and was like, would you mind singing on a couple songs we wrote? And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I was just trying to be polite and kind. And so I went and sang on some of their songs. And then I kind of tried to ghost them. I'm not going to lie. Like I tried to slip away, because I really wasn't interested in joining a band. And they kind of kept hounding me like, dude, come on, just come write with us. Just try it out. And one day, our original bassist, Nick, showed up at my front doorstep because he knew where I lived. And he called me. He was like, yo, open the front door. And I was like, okay. And so I opened the door and he's like, let's write. And I was like, oh no. But I didn't have an excuse to not write with them. So I was like, okay, come on in. Let's do this. And that day we ended up writing a song called 145, which is off of Axiom. It was the first song we ever wrote together. And Will had joined the band. Will, our drummer, had joined the band around the same time I did. So after that, I was like, oh, there's actually something cool here. Like, there's something interesting. I've never written with people before. I'd never written rock music. Before that, I was doing a bunch of acoustic stuff. I was like, this seems like a lot of fun. And my roommates at the time were like, nah, you don't want to join that band, dude. And I was like, nah, I think there's something cool here. So here we are, 7.5 years later, grinding away.
So you guys have a very interesting sound. And I don't know if you listened to our last episode or not, but one of the things Spotify categorizes you guys as is laid back and heavy. Would you say that that's an accurate description of how you guys sound?
Yes. Yeah. I think for a lot of our music, yeah. I would say it's pretty appropriate.
So what kind of influences do you guys have? Because we talk about your sound, laid back and heavy. It is a unique thing. Like when we talked about Dempsey before, it's like you can picture a bunch of different things, but you can't put your finger on exactly what things those are. So what kind of influences do you guys have that create Dead Poet Society? Like what comes together?
I think that we're kind of lucky in the sense that we all kind of share rock as a common ground for a genre that we love, but everybody comes from so many different backgrounds musically. You know, like growing up, you know, I was, you know, when I went to Berkeley, pretty much every guy that had touched a guitar in my age range, you know, in my generation was a John Mayer fan, you know? So I was coming from that background, and Coldplay and John Mayer were kind of the two bands that really influenced me when I first got to Berkeley. And Jack had come from kind of a technical metal background, and so had Nick. And Will was huge into like Snarky Puppy, those kind of more so jam bands. Dave Matthews, he loved a lot of pop punk, a lot of hip hop. And so I think the nice thing is that because everybody in the band writes together, there is no captain's chair. We all kind of contribute. You know, it allows this very unique but narrow pathway of everybody needs to love it if it's going to make it into the song. And because we come from so many different backgrounds, it kind of forced us down this one hole, but it ended up being something that we really liked because it became our sound, you know? And yeah, I mean, it was really just the fact that I think we all came from a bunch of different backgrounds, but we all love strong melodies. And when it comes down to writing, it was just anything that just made us go like, yeah, you know? And then you try to get as many of those, you know, like when you hear something that just, it like your whole insides like tighten up, you're just like, yes. If you know, you collect enough of those moments and you've got a song. And so, yeah.
Definitely. So why don't we get into Axiom a little bit? Why don't we chat a little bit about that?
Yeah.
All right. So the first track is Creature. You want to talk a little bit about Creature?
Yeah. So Creature kind of came around from this one show that we played in my hometown in Virginia. It was actually at my high school. And I had done like choir growing up. So I was very close with the choir teacher at my high school. And I told him I had a band, and he was like, well, do you want to come play like the show choir invitational, which is where they get like 12 schools together and all these people come and watch all these people dance and sing and whatnot. And you're like, yeah, I mean, we're a rock band, but fuck it. Like, yeah, let's do it. And we went down there and played, and I really wasn't reading the situation right. And I was like swearing like crazy. I was just saying fuck left and right. And to the point where they kicked us off stage. And the head of Hampton's like music department, it was this guy named Mr. D, was like livid, and he was the one that yanked us, and he was like lecturing us backstage. Fucking fuck this guy, I don't like whatever. And so just having the fact that we drove all the way from Boston to Virginia, like 600 miles to play this show, and got kicked off a stage, really kind of set a little bit of that, you know, teenage angst in us, a little bit of rage. And so that song kind of comes from that whole experience.
Wow, that's a great story. Yeah, I like think what's the word I'm trying to say? I think that's a great way you guys start this record, because you have those moments in the studio that, you know, on the tail end and the beginning of it, you know, you capture like you're actually people beforehand and get into the song, and it's just so much. Every single song on this record is so much fun. And I think that's
thank you.
Like I blast this in the car at least once a day. So I appreciate the creation.
Okay, so it's no secret that we usually refer to genius to sort of dissect the lyrics of the songs we're listening to. What the hell is going on with whoever did this entry?
So I think it's a shame that a site named Genius has question marks.
Right? It's the opposite of genius, which is non-genius.
It's the opposite of genius.
Now, there are certainly times when somebody's singing a song and you can't decipher what they're saying.
Yeah.
But listening to that song, most of it you could make out if you put a little effort into it.
Yeah. And I think it makes it harder now because I love Jack's story about them getting kicked off stage for this.
I'm just going to go with that. That's my interpretation of this song.
You know, his story reminded me, I had a friend in high school who played we did an open mic night at the school, and he played a song by a homeless gospel choir, and I think he said assholes in the middle of the song. And so a teacher came, not nowhere near as bad probably as happened to them, but a teacher came up to him and said, "Hey, I'm going to let it slide this time, but next time you're going to play a song like that, maybe leave out the assholes." And and I couldn't help but laugh. I thought it was the funniest thing. So, you know, I think that teachers need to be a little more accepting.
Yes.
So Sutton is our next track. So genius.com, which is what we usually reference, says this is about Popcorn Sutton, or at least in a reference.
Yes,
to
it is.
You want to talk
a reference to Popcorn Sutton.
You want to talk a little more about that and maybe even the track as well?
Yeah. So in the early stages of our writing process, one way to, find common ground in a subject to write about was we all loved history. So we'd just pick notable people that kind of gave us some sort of inspiration for writing. And that guy in particular, Popcorn Sutton, we watched this Johnny Knoxville special on him, where he talked about how the guy just literally did not give a fuck. He was just making moonshine in the middle of North Carolina in the backwoods, just being him, absolutely himself. And we just thought that was hilarious and so cool. And so we decided to kind of write a song about him. And it kind of goes through this journey of the kind of we like that old Delta blues kind of sound, as you can hear in the verses. We really lo-fied it, and we were mixing our own stuff at the time. It doesn't sound that great, but it's just kind of a slow journey through his life kind of thing, or a fast journey through his life. I don't know how long the song is, 3 minutes or something like that, but yeah, just kind of try to arc it with his life. So the ending is so slow.
The way that I discovered you guys was the band Bay Faction. And they had, and Spotify has the fans also and enjoy. And so I came across you guys and I heard Sound in Silence. And so I was like, oh, I should probably listen to the rest of the record. And I went on to this song, and that whole part in the middle, that interlude kind of my jaw dropped to the floor because it's just one of those parts where you feel that so deep inside of you. Oh
man,
it's hard.
I'm glad you felt something. That's awesome.
Yeah, that I think I was driving down the Cape when I heard it for the first time, and that was
nice.
Windows down, volume up to 100, whatever. So that was
sick.
Black Betty, Bam Lam.
Yeah, it had that sort of southern-ish vibe, if you get what I'm saying there.
Yeah.
And I think everyone stop what you're doing. Go look up Popcorn Sutton. I'll wait.
Crazy thing.
No, we're waiting.
Oh, we're waiting. Is that enough time?
Okay.
All right. Crazy thing is when I saw that this was about a bootlegger, I was picturing 1920s.
Yeah.
And this dude is 21st century.
Yep.
Just recently died.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, you've seen what he looks like now. You better have. this song sounds like how he looks. Like it's a beautiful mess.
Yeah, it's like the dude on the. You ever seen the retro Mountain Dew that has a little hillbilly on it?
Yeah.
That dude.
Yes.
This is his soundtrack.
So, Jack, DPS guys, if you're listening, I hope you are. I really want you to come on this show again and just talk about how you make the noises you make, because you have such a unique sound, and I don't know how to explain in any better terms how you guys do it. I mean, this is it. The bridge, I'll call it the bridge, like the interlude, the break part. Do 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 do. Like you have this like effect where it's like woo. I can only vocalize it. I don't know how to explain it. It is just so much fun to listen to Dead Poets Society, especially a song like this, because it's unique and you just get that feeling, like that vibe you can't get with a lot of other songs. So this song in particular is probably one of my favorites on this album. So hats off to DPS.
How do you make that beautiful noise?
So Be Here follows Sutton.
I actually haven't thought about Be Here in such a long time. You know, Axiom came out such a long time ago. And we, you know, ever since Dempsey came out, I guess in 2016, we've just been releasing singles. So Axiom seems so far away now, but Be Here was about just appreciating being alive and letting the day-to-day stress of life not get you down. Just like take a second and remind yourself that you're alive, and that's a beautiful experience, because most of the universe isn't, and you have a chance to be conscious for a few moments. So just appreciate that.
And that, I think even the music to this song, the instrumentation, like kind of gets that point across. You know, you have that kind of like bouncy guitar sound in the background that, like, I don't know, gives it that like spacious kind of vibe to it. And, you know, like life is kind of just around you and you're a part of it, and, you know, enjoy it. I think that's great. And great.
I'm glad you liked it. Thank you very much.
Be mindful of the living force, Obi-Wan.
So living in the moment.
In other words.
Yeah, this song is great for that reason. Like, it's such an uplifting message to remind yourself to, you know, live in the now. Like, we last week we listened to Iris Dement, and what's the first song?
Let the mystery be.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, don't worry about what comes next. Don't worry about, just let it be a mystery and enjoy what you have right now. And I think similarly, we have the message here as well. You know, live in the now. Yeah. This song also, I love like that oscillating, like do 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 do. I don't know what they're doing to do that, so this is why I want you guys to come on, and talk to me about it. But yeah, I don't know what that instrument is or that is happening there. It could be a guitar with like an echo or something on it, but or you know, delay. But it's great.
Do you think maybe animals are more enlightened than people?
I would say the opposite.
Normally you would, but we're talking about living in the moment. That's all. The difference between us and animals is animals live in the moment.
Yeah, no, it's not because they're enlightened. It's because they don't know any better.
But we're trying to get back there, right?
Are we, though?
I think that's the goal.
I don't think so. I think animals are just not smart enough to go, right. Maybe there's something bigger than me.
I think animals are smart enough that long ago they realized, screw it, don't matter.
Wow.
Yeah, random thoughts.
Belhara.
Yeah.
I love the name so much. Just want you to know.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think Jack came up with that name, if I recall correctly.
Not you, Jack. The other Jack.
Other Jack. Yeah, no, I'm talking about myself in the third person. Belhara. Let me see. Another one I haven't thought about in a long time. I think when I was writing that song, let's see. I think that song was about writing and letting the dream of being a musician kind of be uplifting and kind of looking to the future in a optimistic way of making this my career. Yeah, that's what that song was about.
It's great. Yeah, the main reason why I love the title is that like isn't like a Viking, right? Isn't it Viking related?
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
It's, you guys, your titles are on point. That's I guess the point I'm getting to. Which is
thank you very much.
I see us feeding off the land with a sea of paper and a bleeding land. A love drive to golden paper lands, but I never heard you cry and sing again.
Okay, before we go any further, I want to take a minute to talk about the awesome folks at Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way. In fact, it's the way that we make a podcast. Let me explain.
it's free.
There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer.
Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more.
And you can make money from your podcast. Best part, no minimum listenership.
Ooh. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place.
It's so cool. We found the service. We started using it. We're making podcasts.
Yeah, making podcasts, making money, having a good time.
So listen, you want to get you out there. You want to be heard. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started.
Thank you.
So seriously, screw whoever did the genius entry on this. The entire page for this song is just bracket, question mark, and bracket.
Well, I think that's funny because their like logo is like underscore exclamation point underscore
You know,
or a dash.
It occurred to me almost immediately after we ended the interview that we should have asked about the album cover.
Oh, yeah.
Or, I mean, is there the story that you know? Or
No, I don't.
all right, yeah,
Yeah.
hey guys, Jack, if you're listening, we kind of screwed up.
We always appreciate the loose ends because we do these commentary afterwards. Maybe we should start doing it before and have these questions. The panning in this song is fantastic. Like the use of dynamics and panning and just the engineering and recording value, production value in general is top tier. I don't know where they recorded this, but kudos because you could record the worst thing in the whole world, but you have a good engineer and a great studio and whatever, like, you know, you can do a lot. And they really did so well here with the production of the song.
And as we've commented in the past, frequently when we're listening to an album, we'll compare it to other songs or other musicians. And it's never saying that this band or that band is copying somebody. It's to give it a frame of reference for somebody who's never listened to it before. And I had a real hard time like nailing down even what I would assume their influences were. They've got such a unique sound. I will compare them to Boston, the band, another Berkeley band that had their own very distinct sound. Like you hear a Boston song, you know it's Boston.
Yeah,
and
always.
DPS has the same sort of thing. They sound nothing like Boston, but they've got that same vibe going where this is DPS,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, if we needed to make a genre, it's the DPS genre,
Exactly.
which I think is
DPS
great.
and the people that, copy them.
Like I wish people would copy them.
Right?
You know? Like, because they have such a great sound.
Oh, which reminds me, apropos to nothing, Robert Plant and David Coverdale are going to release like a remastered 30th anniversary of...
You mean...
Oh, Jimmy Page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, Coverdale and Plant never happened.
They should, because that would just be me and my echo. But I'm sad to hear that, because I love Jimmy Page, but that album can just go right to hell.
So the next song, Sinn Fein,
Yes.
at least for people of my generation, that's got a whole thing behind it. I mean, with Northern Ireland and the IRA. So is that what is being referenced here?
Yeah, in a way, this is kind of a touchy one because I know, Sinn Fein represented a lot of evil, and for some people, and then some people, not so much. But it became an extremist group, but we were reading about Michael Collins, and going back to history, and what he originally wanted to do with Ireland, and we had kind of briefly read up on the history of Sinn Fein, and we just thought it was an interesting topic to write about, maybe from the perspective of Michael Collins in the beginning of his lifetime, as a sort of, in his words, sort of like a freedom kind of person, liberty. So yeah, it's got an interesting connotation because of the IRA and everything like that, but we just kind of tried to write it from a historical standpoint.
Well, what's interesting too, like if you strip away the connotation, and Sinn Fein is Gaelic for we ourselves, which sort of is the whole idea that that your band has. This is us, this is ourselves, this is our thing. So that's cool.
Yeah. I think you're right about that. And we haven't performed that song in years, but to this day it always gets me going whenever we do.
Sail away, the sound of my voice is like a hurricane. Feel it from the edge of the earth, hear the name, ripping through the cracks of your spine, in your veins, consuming you and making you mine.
So I know it's probably going to come across like I'm making fun, but I think it's really cool that these guys would sit down and watch like Michael Collins and write a song about it, or see a documentary about hillbilly bootlegger and write a song about it. Like that's what they're doing in their spare time, is they're watching historical.
And what I love, like Sinn Fein, what Sinn Fein is, right? Like the song has got like a chant to it, and it's like it's like a rallying cry.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool. I think they've captured the essence of what Sinn Fein, that kind of idea, not the ideology, but just the idea, it's a group. And I don't.
Am I bugging
I'm
you?
making no sense.
I don't mean to bug you. That's Bono from U2. Sunday Bloody Sunday.
Yeah.
He goes off on a rant and one of their live
literally
performances.
only know the drum intro to that because it's the most memorable part of that song.
You should put Rattle and Hum on your watch list.
I absolutely hate U2 though.
I hate you too. Thanks a lot. What is this, our 60th episode, 50th episode?
I have
Aaron
no
just
idea.
comes straight out and says he hates me. It's all good.
So following Sinn Fein is Sound and Silence, which I don't know, you probably would know better than I. Is that the one that's probably the biggest on the record? The one that was the most popular?
Yeah. Sound and Silence and Colors did really well. Those were the two that kind of kickstarted this as like a possibility of being a career.
Yeah, that I love the driving part of that. The whoa, you can get everybody involved, and when you participate with the band in a song, that it's a good song. I actually named my private Snapchat story "Sound and Silence" after that. So
nice.
Because sometimes it's just quiet, and sometimes it's a bunch of bullshit. But so what can you tell us what this song's about?
Yeah. So the song is kind of about the oppressive and manipulative media of the West. I think when I wrote this song, it was kind of at the beginning of like targeted advertising for news. How people kind of see what the algorithm tells them to see. You know, if you click on an article by MSNBC or Fox News, whatever side you're on, and they, you know, they'll see that and they'll say, okay, well, let's just keep feeding them more of this news that they like, and inadvertently it creates this sort of manipulation of reality for a lot of people. And that song, we wanted to touch on that, saying, you know, it's just like people just soak up whatever's in front of them, and we have this confirmation bias over time. And I mean, I think it's gotten even worse today, you know, but yeah. So that's where that kind of came from.
Yeah, and you're right about it being super appropriate to super appropriate explanation of how today is. That's for sure.
Yeah.
You know, especially this next week, you know, we'll see how things go.
Ramping up. It's either going to skyrocket. It's gonna
I mean, by the time this comes out, we'll know what happened. But
yeah, it's true, right?
Right now, we're in an uncertain period.
We'll be watching this in our bunker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
This fall, the bones will open. Grind the tail into the echo of a modern eye. Smoke from the sides come running from the wildfire.
So initially, the first time I listened to this album, I put down political with a question mark after this, and it sort of was.
Yeah, it sort of was. This song is like a journey for me, because I mentioned this when we talked to Jack, but I'll reiterate again. The first time I listened to Dead Poets Society was I was listening to Bay Faction. It was probably, I think it was right around the time we finished our episode with about Bay Faction, back in like February or March.
The way before.
Right? The way before times. So we did the episode, and I was listening to them on Spotify, and I'm like, you know what? I should look for other bands. And so I went on Spotify. They have like the artists you might like section. And I came across this band like Cleopatra, which I like as well. And then I got down even further in a rabbit hole, and eventually I ended up at Dead Poets Society. And the first song that I listened to by them was Sound in Silence.
Oh, I could see that grabbing you.
Yeah, and it was one of those things, I listened to it and I was like, oh, this is great. This is fantastic. And honestly, like, I had only listened to that song like the whole time. Like, I just over and over and over again. Little did I know they had other songs. So it grew and it grew and it grew. But this song, like, it's just such a pull you in song. Like, the vocals are layered so well. There's this dynamic sort of change thing that they do in here to like really keep your attention. Think about like when we make an episode, right? We probably record a lot more content that actually gets put out than what actually gets put out, because it's more exciting. It's like a vlog. And I think they like know how to keep, you know, interesting part quiet, you know, smaller parts, and they just like chunk it up so well. But the panning, the production value is fantastic. Like, I showed this to somebody and they thought I was like talking about one of my friends' songs. I don't know why. And like, wow, this is so good. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's good because they're like professional people.
They're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
They're Berkeley musicians.
Exactly.
So an interesting point that Jack brought up, and I actually, Jack, thank you. I had a long think about this the next day. Mentions in this song how society's been kind of taken over with algorithms affecting your confirmation bias. You know, the news you read is selected for your tastes. And it occurred to me that algorithms are basically, it's AI. They're self-learning. So we have spent all this time in science fiction and popular culture worrying about the robots taking over. They already have. We're living in separate realities. You know, somebody who is reading nothing about but like right-wing articles is living a completely different reality than I am right now. And that's freaky. So right on the money.
So the last track on the record is Colors. And definitely I can see how Sound and Silence and Colors did very well, because Colors takes you on such a fantastic journey. And it's just a really nice wrap up to the whole thing.
Oh, thank you. That song kind of came from I wrote it in my bedroom when I lived on Boylston Street, and kind of took it to the band. And they were like, "This is cool. It's like, let's figure out something to do with this." And the inspiration of those lyrics kind of came from that same day that we were kicked off stage in my high school. I was kind of like walking around the high school I went to for 4 years, and it was all empty because it was the evening time, school was out, and I was just kind of like, "Whoa, this is kind of crazy being back here for the first time in 2 years." And I kind of drew inspiration from that kind of introspective moment that I had, and it kind of blended with this fact that your perception grows the older you get, and I would say that I'm only 27, but you get older and your armor becomes thicker, but the challenges become harder as well, and there's more of them. And I was starting to get like the inklings of that, when I was up at school, and so I just kind of wrote off that moment of like starting to lose my youth. And I mean, I was only 20 at the time, so I was being a little fucking dramatic little bitch, but yeah, I kind of wrote off of that sort of feeling of like, oh, okay, I'm 20 now, okay, and then next thing I know, I'm going to be 30, next thing I know, I'm going to be 40, and it's going to keep happening. And so yeah.
And what I like about like Colors in comparison, like Animation, the two of them, like they both just are a really nice ending to both records. Like it really brings everything together and just ties it all up. And it's a whole different sound, but each of them, but they do the trick. And so, but they share that sort of vibe. And I also get them confused sometimes for that same reason. You just do a great job.
Well, I'm glad that comes across, because I think something that's very important to us is that, a lot of people have messages along with their bands. And for a long time, I didn't really know what ours was, nor did I think that we really needed one. I don't think you necessarily need a message to make art. I sort of realized that I think, the message that comes across in our band is that it's all about the art, 100%. It's all about constantly finding that feeling and letting the art dictate its composition. And so a lot of our music, especially when all of our singles come out, sounds a lot different. We range from like really heavy stuff to like more open airy kind of things like Colors, and more bluesy stuff, darker, lighter. And one thing that is always important to us is that we never pick a direction for the music to go. We let the music dictate where it goes. And so we end up with songs like American Blood, which are more alt rocky. And then we have like songs like Coda, which are heavy and angry. And we have, on this new record, like a folk song. And then we have another like really Coldplay, but then we also have some of the heaviest music that we've written on here. And it's very important to us to let the art dictate what it does. And for a long time, labels, when we got out here, were constantly saying that we're still searching for our sound. They would kind of stand by the edge of the pool and look in, and they'd say like, okay, yeah, no, we'll come when you guys figure yourselves out. And what they didn't understand is that we know who we are, we know our sound. It's just that it doesn't stick to a genre. No matter how we write, no matter how it comes out, it's going to sound like us. It's just not going to be the same, distorted guitars and this the entire time. And I think that, this new label that we have really understands this for the first time. And the reality of the situation is probably that we just weren't that good, and they didn't want to pounce on it yet. But that's what I like to tell myself, is that, we let the art dictate the art. And we're never going to stick to like a certain genre or sound. We're just gonna write, and what comes out the best is what we're gonna release.
For no
All right, so Jack, when you get a chance, check out Iris DeMent, her album Infamous Angel. You want to listen to the song When Love Was Young, because we actually referenced you talking about this song in our discussion about that song.
On last week's episode.
On last week's episode, yeah. So just go right to the source. All you need to do is just listen to When Love Was Young by Iris DeMent and know that that when you get older, you have less color. It just washes out of everything. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, when we were talking to Jack, I mentioned this too, but yeah, compared to animation, like it's the same style, and I like that because they know how to end an album, and you've built up this really energetic, upbeat. There you go, upbeat album, and now you've brought it back down. You kind of said, all right, we're going to relax now. This is what we're going to listen to, and it's like a reflection. The whole thing is looking back. You know, he said in an interview, he's walking through his high school. It's completely empty because it's nighttime. Imagine going to your high school now.
Yeah.
You know, completely empty. And
it's like creating the perfect campfire program. Like, think back to if you had to MC a campfire program. You start with something real lively that gets people hooked and excited, and you build up the energy, and then you bring it down. This is Softly Falls.
God, I hate that. But you're right. Yeah, it is. It's like reading a book. We've already past the climax, and now we're on the.
Yeah, we're in the epilogue.
I think there's a different name for it.
Prologue's at the beginning. Well, the afterwards.
I'll think. There's three. There's like the rising act, falling action.
Conclusion. Yes, I'm actually talking about. It's more like the coda, I guess, would be the.
Yeah, well, that's a different song.
Yes, bird of a different feather.
But you know, looking towards the future, still, you guys just had your single "Into Deep" come out on September 24th, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why don't you talk about "Into Deep"? Because I love the song. It hits me in the feels every time. So,
good.
So yeah, please talk about it.
Okay. Well, that song originally came about. I went to Virginia to visit my family and you know, a couple of hometown friends. And I went over to my friend Graham's house, and he just bought a house. So I was going over to check it out. We were going to hang out, you know, drink, catch up. And a couple of my other friends showed up, and, you know, they all had their careers going. They're all buying property. And it just made me kind of like feel a little insecure about the fact that like, I'm still doing what I was doing when I left at 18, guys. Like, I'm 27 years old now. Like, whoops. And it just kind of struck a chord with me and made me feel like, God, like what am I doing? So I went home and I kind of wrote out the verses of this song, and it kind of connects really hard with me because, you know, these lyrics are some of the most proud, you know, I'm most proud of these lyrics because they were just a lot of like my raw feelings and facts, and less about, you know, being poetic. You know, like in the first verse in general, I say, I heard my boy just bought his own house, told me I could crash while I figure it out. And that's what he literally told me. He told me I could crash at his house whenever I needed it. And it was just like, fuck, like I'm here writing music that isn't popular anymore. Like, what the fuck am I doing? And, but to contrast that, it's an addictive lifestyle. It's very destructive, but it's addictive. You know, like the highs that we experience when we go on tour and we play for people is unlike anything on earth. And it's something I never want to stop doing. I never want to give up. And it's a destructive lifestyle because it's a high risk, high reward kind of career. And it doesn't last very long. And it's a lot of long nights, and going a month with getting an average of 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night. And, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. And so that's where the lyric of, you know, this life's like heroin kind of comes in, because it's awesome, but at the same time, it's fucking destructive.
That was the song I needed when it came out because, I'm only 21. I'm not that old, but, I have friends that are just getting married and stuff. And I spent, some time in high school and a little bit afterwards in a band, and I lost those friends and I pushed them away. And now they're on starting their lives and doing things. And I'm sitting here like, oh, well, I'm still in school and living in my parents' house, and this is my life right now. So I listened to it at least 40 times that same day. I was like, dude, this hits me so hard.
Well, I was hoping that it would connect with creative people because I think we all kind of share in that. Because when you're in a creative field, nobody gives a fuck about you except for you. No. Nobody cares about your career except for you. There's nothing holding you to doing it. Mm-hmm. You're doing it yourself. The bike's only going if you're pedaling it. And so I was hoping that it would connect with other artists out there and people in creative fields. So yeah, I'm glad we can share that.
All of my friends are starting their lives while I'm working, I'm trying to stay alive. I heard my boy just bought his own house, told me I could crash while I figure it out. Writing music that isn't popular anymore, drinking by the fire, talking about my own desires. I know I'm sounding crazy, know you think I'm fucking lazy, but you'll never understand. You'll never understand. I'm so high.
So I'm really glad that with this new song, and I assume with future stuff they're going to be doing, that I'm just glad that they've kept true to form. They haven't tried to change their sound. And I know that's something Jack said that they were concerned about. They finally found a record label that does care about how they sound and doesn't have this expectation of them to be still finding their sound. We talked about Falling in Reverse on the show, and say what you want about Ronnie Radke and Falling in Reverse, whatever. One thing he did say, and I think that you can agree, or most people could agree, that smart people like his music. Now that seems like an arrogant thing to say. Smart people like music. Smart people like what I listen to. Yeah. But I think that you need to respect what he does as an artist, because what he's doing is he's pushing boundaries. He's doing a lot of really interesting musical sort of things that you might not expect from the genre, and he's doing a lot right now as an artist, and smart people like his music. I showed this song to somebody, In Too Deep. I showed this song to somebody who's has nothing to do with any artistic ability whatsoever. It doesn't write, they can write, but isn't a writer, isn't a musician or anything like that, and they hated it. I think smart people like Dead Poets Society's music. I think it takes a smarter person to deconstruct exactly what they're doing here. So like Ronnie Radke saying, smart people like our music, smart people like it. Smart people like Dead Poets Society, and they enjoy them because they can break down and understand exactly what they're trying to do, not only musically, but lyrically. They can make people feel things, and not only with some noises that are going into their ears, but the words that are coming in as well. And I think that's an incredible thing about this band and about this new single that I absolutely love.
Math music.
Well, it's not math rock at all.
Well, I said math music, not math rock. So in case anybody hasn't picked up on it, Aaron really digs this album. This is a good album. I'm actually going to go out and this is going to get added to the truck collection.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well,
putting it in rotation.
Neutral Milk Hotel got added to my car collection, so yeah. I'm glad that I could add something to your truck collection.
And this is like going back to probably our off the air premiere episode. This is you and I tickling our minds. No thanks, I'm a vegetarian is a fun thing to say when someone tries to hand you their baby.
Random. So, Chris, what do we have next week on Esoterica, the podcast?
That's a good question.
Actually, I should tell you that.
Yes, you should.
I should. So next week, we're going to be listening to Music for Supermarkets by Jean-Michel Jarre. Here's why this is interesting. This album was created, only one copy was created. The master plates were burned. And I believe the actual one record was destroyed itself or something of that nature. But it's not widely available. But it was bootlegged from an AM radio broadcast back in the 80s. It's an EDM album, and somebody just played it over the air. And so somebody saved it, and that's the only way you can listen to this album now. So we're going to be listening to that album next week.
Probably almost literally the most esoteric.
You legit cannot get this album anywhere but bootlegged off of YouTube videos.
The only thing that we've come across more esoteric than this would be Spider on my microphone.
And nobody even knows what that is.
Amen.
So check out esotericathepodcast.com for all your updates and merch and all that jazz. Before we go, though, I'm going to shoot things back to Jack and let him pimp a few things for Dead Poet Society.
Well, we're re-releasing our song Coda. We have a new music video coming out for it. And if this comes out on the 11th, keep an eye out, because on November 12th, we're announcing something big. And we're really excited about it. Yeah, so follow us on Instagram, We Are DPS, Twitter, We Are DPS. Get us on Xbox Music, Amazon Music, and Spotify and Apple Music, of course.
Yeah, and if you check out Esoterica the podcast on the 12th, we will share whatever that announcement may be, assuming it'll be an Instagram post or something. So
That'd be awesome, guys.
check us
Thank
out.
you.
We'll share it as well, and make sure you give them a follow because they deserve it.
Thank you very much, guys.
So before we say anything else, I'd like to give a shout out to all the veterans out there. Thank you for your service. And don't forget, it's November, which means Christmas is just around the corner. So if you're looking for stocking stuffers, a limited edition Esoterica, the podcast,
Esoterica
the podcast shirt or sticker or face mask or mug or our limited run of Make America Okay Again t-shirts, all available.
At esotericathepodcast.com. There are links to it, all of it.
Yes, please check it out and get yourself some flair for the holiday season. Give it as gifts. You know what I would love, Mom, for Christmas? An Esoterica podcast t-shirt. So until then,
Stay esoteric.